You're listening to episode 10 of Speakin with Deacon, 10 tips to a divorce-proof marriage.
Speakin with Deacon is a production of the Parousia Podcast Network in partnership with Voice of Charity Australia and EWTN Asia Pacific. Join us as we discuss strategies that will empower us to announce the gospel of the Lord daily through our words and deeds. This is Speakin with Deacon.
Hello and thanks for joining us once again on Speakin with Deacon. My name is Mark Griffin and joining me, as always, is Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers. Deacon Harold, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Mark. It's great to see you as always.
Thank you. It's great to be with you once again. And we're actually very excited down here in Australia because in only a couple of weeks after we release this particular episode of the podcast, you're going to be visiting us on your 7th tour to Australia. Now, Deacon, I just want to ask you, first of all, are you looking forward to the trip? And if the answer is not yes, please pretend you've got technical trouble or something like that.
Of course, I'm looking forward to coming back to Australia. It's probably my favorite country to visit in the world, not only because of the speaking and, because it's Australia. I think the people there have been absolutely wonderful, very receptive and open to the beauty of the fullness of the truth of the faith. I've developed many wonderful friendships there, including yourself, Mark, of course. And so I can consider Australia kind of like a second home, so I'm very excited to come back. Obviously I haven't been there since, was it 2018 or 2019 with the pandemic, and all of that. So I'm very excited to come back down under again.
Yeah, we're looking forward to having you here. And we've got you coming this time with Tim Staples from Catholic Answers, also on his 7th trip. Neither one of you wanted to be outdone, obviously. So you'll be both here together on the Be Not Afraid tour. And that's going to be here starting on October 6th, I believe, off the top of my head. I don't have the details in front of me, but we're very much looking forward to it. You've got a couple of new presentations you're going to be giving, and so does Tim. And so it's going to be a wonderful trip around Sydney and Melbourne for Deacon Harold and for Tim Staples. So have a look at our website, parousiamedia.com, and go to the events page for all the details. But yeah, very much looking forward to that. So can't wait. But before we get to that, we have a discussion today. For those who are watching the video, you might have gleaned that it is something to do with the topic of marriage, as Deacon Harold's got his wedding photo as his backdrop today with his beautiful wife, Colleen. Today, we're actually going to be talking about 10 tips for a divorce-proof marriage. So we're going to be going through these 10 tips in no particular order. There's no sequence that has to be followed, but just 10 thoughts, 10 ideas to help in strengthening our marriages for life. And Deacon, you might even provide some of your own experiences from within your own marriage to demonstrate some practical applications of these ideas. So are you ready to jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, let me start by saying how I came up with this list.
Okay.
So there's a couple. Yeah, it's a couple things. First of all, if people by now should know my story, I was a Benedictine, right? And so I never actually thought that I would be married, So, and I come from a background where my parents are divorced. They did not have a good marriage, and so I really had no perspective as to what a good marriage was supposed to look like and what it was supposed to be like and how to do it, kind of a thing. So in knowing, of course, you get married for life, right? Not till it becomes inconvenient, not until the other person makes you angry, not until you get bored, or whatever the reason, the person gets sick, whatever the reason may be. It's for life until one of you dies. And so having been married now 28 years, I've taken the experiences and also doing marriage preparation in the parish, and seeing what happens with couples, and reading some books and going to couples therapy ourselves at times. We hit some low points in our marriage and really benefited from counseling. So it's taken all of those experiences. And I use these 10 things, Mark, as kind of the third part of my marriage preparation program for couples. that I still use to this day in the parish. And so a lot of people have found these to be very helpful. In fact, I even have Protestants that come for marriage prep because they hear, if we get past you, we know we'll stay married forever. So this is something we take very, very seriously in our parish because we understand, Mark, that we're preparing people for a lifetime commitment, not just to look good for pictures, right? And if you think about it, the way the sacraments are grouped in the catechism, there's the sacraments of initiation, right? Baptism, confirmation, Eucharist, the sacraments of healing, anointing of the sick, and reconciliation, and the sacraments at the service of communion, holy orders, and marriage. Okay, so think about it. A priest spends 6 or 7 years preparing for a lifetime of service as a priest, and a married couple prepares, what, a weekend? Or maybe a couple of weeks for a lifetime of marriage? What's wrong with this picture? Right? Now, of course, I'm not saying that married couples should spend 6 or 7 years preparing for marriage. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, we don't want to happen what just happened to an in-law relative of mine. One of my wife's cousins recently got married, just had a baby, and now are getting divorced. Like, whoa, you guys haven't been married like 3 years and you have a baby and now you're getting divorced. Well, they said, well, we decided we were better friends than spouses. Well, isn't that something you should have discerned before you made that commitment to marriage?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you see, so we need to do a better job with marriage preparation. I hope that these 10 tips will help people that are discerning marriage, that are even having problems in their marriage now. Or if you are doing marriage prep in your parish, maybe this is something you can add to your tool chest.
And some of these tips are going to take people out of their comfort zone a little bit. It's not supposed to be an easy process. It's not supposed to be an easy lifestyle. Marriage comes with its challenges. I've been married 13 years myself now, coming up in October. And yeah, it comes with its challenges. But at the same time, those challenges, when you work through those challenges, they come with their own rewards as well. And yeah, so some of these tips, they're going to be challenging, but I encourage all the people listening to take these on board. Maybe not all 10 of these things will apply to everybody, but take from this what you can and then apply it with your spouse or with your fiance. Apply it to your own situation and let's see if these can really help people strengthen this bond for life. So let's jump into the first one. The first of the 10 tips, be mindful of offering genuine affection. What do you mean by that, Deacon?
Yeah, so affection. So affection is showing through words, cards, hugs, gifts, kisses, like little courtesies, little wonderful things there that you care, that you want to create an environment that clearly and repeatedly expresses love, right? So what's interesting, Mark, some people need more affection than others. So for example, in our case, in our marriage, my wife craves affection, right? Where myself, I don't need a lot of affection in order to show love, but my wife craves affection. And here's the thing, Mark, I'm not a very overly affectionate person, right? So oops, we have a problem here, right? Because how do I satisfy that need in my wife for affection when I am not overly affectionate myself? So this is where the idea of marriage as a cross comes in, right? Jesus on the cross was totally vulnerable, but yet it's in that gift of vulnerability where we see his strength, right? So he broke himself open and poured himself out in love. And we need to do that in marriages sometimes, Mark. We need to break ourselves open and pour ourselves out for our spouse. Right? We have to go outside of ourselves. We have to go beyond our own needs to meet the need of the spouse. So what did I do to kind of reconcile this in our marriage? I'll tell you kind of a funny story. I remember I was thinking about all of this, and this is when the kids were younger. And I remember going shopping at the grocery store and thinking about all of this affection. How can I be more affectionate? And I saw that there were some flowers on sale, some roses. So I said, okay, I'm going to get my wife some roses. And now, because I'm also an intelligent husband, I know you just can't get roses. What else do you have to get if you get flowers for your wife, Mark?
Chocolates.
Chocolates, chocolates. So I had to go to get the chocolates. And so I got a little box of chocolate. I had the roses. I got home and I arranged the flowers on the dining room table, and I put the box of the box of can't cut chocolates there, arranged it real nice. And the kids came home from school and they saw that and they said, "Uh-oh, Daddy, what did you do?" I said, "I didn't do anything. I said, I just wanted to show your mom how much I love her." Because for me, now, again, this is something I would not normally, not because I don't want to, I just don't think about it because I don't need affection. But I often don't think, well, what does my spouse need? You know how sometimes we kind of get a little bit selfish.
Sure.
We think about our own needs and we don't focus on the needs of the other. And so I was deliberately trying to focus on the needs of my wife. So now what happened was the kids were all excited. They were all excited. They were waiting for mommy to come home from work. So my wife comes home. She's a psychologist. She has a private practice. So she came home from her thing and the kids, mommy, look, look, look. And she looked at the table and saw the flowers and the chocolates, and her eyes got big, like, uh-oh, what day is today? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I forgot something. And I said, no, it's not any kind of special day. I did this to show you that I love you. And oh, she was so, oh, hon, she gave me a big old hug and a kiss, and she walked over and looked at the flower. But Mark, the most special thing about that was the reaction of the kids.
Mhm.
I didn't even anticipate that. I wasn't even thinking about that
Yep.
when I got the flowers and the chocolates, but the kids were so excited. When they saw, look how daddy and mommy love each other. I said, wow, what a powerful, that little gift, just flowers and chocolate, nothing extravagant, not jewelry, but that little sign of love and affection made an impact on those kids, and that's something that's beautiful. So, because what happened, Mark, it kind of wears off, doesn't it?
Mhm.
When you're first dating and
Yeah.
you're trying to show each other your best side or your best self, and you open the car door for your date, and maybe you offer to pay for dinner, you do all these little courtesies. But then when you get married, it kind of falls away because now you get into the busyness of home life and kids and work, and you just don't think, oh, let me stop and show a little affection, maybe a hug or something. But it's those little things, Mark, I think that make the biggest difference.
Absolutely. And I think especially with that example and the way you say your daughters were really swept up in the moment as well, I think it really is the best thing you can give your kids is to show them that you love their mother. As a husband, the best thing, and a father, the best thing you can give your kids is to show them that you love their mother, because they then have a very, very much a sense of security in that. And for their future as well, you're actually demonstrating something for them that they should expect in their own future marriages, if that's their vocation. You're demonstrating what they should be looking for in a man, how a man should be loving them, and how a man should be taking care of them. So it really is, it's a really powerful witness for the children. So I very much like that example, that demonstration as something that can be something, as you say, something so small, but it really means a lot on so many different levels, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing for me is I have to consciously think about it.
Mhm.
For example, just Mark, literally just yesterday, I went to Conley and I said, look, hon, you know, um, I'm gonna start traveling here soon. I'm going to Australia, and I'm gonna be on the road at parish missions and things. And I said, I really want to spend some time together, and she goes, okay, why don't we go to a movie? So we went to last night, we went to dinner and a movie, and we held hands during the movie. It was, I mean, just little things like that, that after 28 years, you're kind of like, oh, she knows I love her already. She doesn't need me to. Well, yes, she does. She
Yeah,
really does.
yeah.
And it was nice. I mean, we had a wonderful time. And even more so than the movie, it was just being together and
Yeah.
just enjoying each other's company. So that was the best part of the whole thing. And so again, those little signs of affections that are done frequently, right? So not just every once in a while, but like what thing can I do this week? Maybe that's a little homework. What one thing can I do this week to show my spouse affection? What small thing can I do to show them that how much I love them? It doesn't have to be big or extravagant. It just has to come from the heart.
That's fantastic. That's great advice, and that's tip number one. It's affection, being mindful of offering genuine affection to your spouse. So we move on to tip number 2, sexual fulfillment and looking out for the needs of your spouse. What have you got to say on this
Right.
topic? This is obviously
Okay,
it's a challenging one for some people.
Right, and I understand this is a family podcast too, so that's my example's not going to be anything lewd or anything like that. But here's the thing, God, and I said this in my virtual conference, right, for Parousia not too long ago, that God loves sex, right? In Genesis chapter 1, God's first command, it says, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." And the word fruitful there is ephrata in Aramaic, but para in Hebrew. And it literally means to be open, to be open. So literally says, be open and multiply. That means be open to life. That's God's first command, because life flows out of God's love, right? It's a natural intrinsic byproduct of love is life, right? Christ died on the cross in an act of love so that death could be conquered. The one thing that could separate us from God forever is death. But Christ died to show not even death is more powerful than God's love. So he died to give us the opportunity for eternal life. He gave us the Eucharist, right? The earthly sign, his body, blood, soul, divinity, as an earthly sign and witness of his love, that I am with you always to the end of the world. And so he gave us the gift of our sexuality, be able to procreate, because the family on earth is the image and likeness of the family in heaven, right? So God exists as a communion, as a family of persons. So the conjugal act between a husband and a wife is a beautiful thing. It is, and it serves. What's the purpose? It has a unitive and a procreative dimension. So the human sexuality, obviously, the conjugal act between a husband and wife are designed to unite that couple, to unify that couple in strengthening the bond between the loving and life-giving bond between them, and procreation, the procreative dimension, to bring forth children. All right. So those are the dual dimensions of the conjugal act. So it is an important part of marriage. Again, not just for the sole purpose of having kids, but also to unite that couple together. So sometimes this could be challenging, right, in marriages. This wasn't really a challenge for my wife and I very much at all, until recently, right? And let me talk about both aspects. So the way, and I'm making a generalization here, and I understand that this may not apply to everybody, but generally, women want to feel close, right? A wife wants to feel close to her husband, and when she feels that closeness to him, then she's more open to engaging in a conjugal act. Whereas men want to engage in the conjugal act in order to feel closer to their wife. So it's like backwards, and I embarrass myself here, but it's kind of funny. So in the beginning of our sexual relationship, I'd be like, I'd make some advances toward her, and she'd be like reading a book and have her glasses on, and I'd make an advance, and she's like, "Oh, okay, I'm into it." So she takes her glasses off, puts her book down, turns toward me, and says, guess what Claire did today? And I'm like, I don't care what Claire did today. Right now, I ain't thinking about Claire. I ain't thinking, right? You know what I'm saying? But because I'm a guy and sometimes I'm a little hard-headed, it took me a while to understand that what she wasn't not interested, what she was, and she wasn't stalling, what she was doing by talking about her day and talking about things that she cares about, that makes her feel closer to me so she could be more engaged. And I didn't realize that. Right. So I was so frustrated, like, why are you stalling here? Look, why, let's just get at it, But then I had to, when I understood this dynamic, then I said, oh, okay. So now I know, okay, let's have a conversation, let's talk, let's, these, and because it's going to lead to a more enjoyable experience and response for both of us.
Mhm.
Right. Um, and so, but now the challenge is, Mark, is just the opposite, right? Because uh where my wife's in, past the menopause, right? So for those of you who are not familiar with that, that's a woman reproductive cycle starts when she's a teenager or has her first menstrual cycle, first period, and then the periods end when a woman gets older, and the end of that reproductive cycle is called menopause. And there's a hormonal change in a woman because the body's not producing the same, pheromones and the same chemicals that want her to engage in the act, because now her reproductive system's kind of shut down, and so she hasn't been as open. I mean, like desiring, not has nothing to do with me. I mean, I just lost a bunch of weight, right? So it has nothing to do with me physically. It's just that just chemically in her body and biologically. And I knew that this was going to happen. I mean, I was thinking, okay, we're getting older here. There's going to be a time where we're not going to be able to have intercourse anymore. Okay, I get it. It's going to happen. I'm preparing myself, but I thought at least now we could still, have intercourse fairly frequently. And that's not the case. And that's okay. You know what? That's okay, Mark. Why? Because we're having less physical intimacy than we've ever had in our marriage. But Mark, I love my wife more now than the day I married her. You see, so it's not about the frequency. It's about the quality, not the quantity. Right? It's about the quality, not the quantity. And I realize that this is the part of our life where this part of our life is slowing down. It's not completely stopped, but it's slowed down. And for me as a man, right, I'm always fertile, right? So our
Mhm.
our testosterone doesn't, well, it does actually die down, but not as much as a woman's pheromones, right? And so biologically, I'm still active, I'm still fertile, where my wife is not. And so it's a different dynamic, a different perspective, and that's okay. And that's okay. So now what does that force me to do, Mark? I have to show more signs of affection, knowing that those signs of affection are not going to lead to a conjugal act. And that's okay, you know. Um so but one thing I found, Mark, in marriage preparation that destroys this dynamic, especially couples preparing for marriage or even couples that are in marriages, is contraception and pornography.
Mhm.
Those two things are absolutely devastating to a marriage. Now, why do I say that? Let me tell it within this context. Um, those of you who've heard me preach, right? And what I mean by preaching is giving a homily during mass. I'm not afraid to talk about difficult subjects. I'm not afraid to tackle tough issues. But I always speak the truth in love. But it's
Mhm.
always going to be the truth. But it's always going to be a love. Ephesians 4:15. That's what St. Paul says. So one time I gave a homily about the beauty of the church's teaching of the theology of the body. I didn't mention anybody's name. I didn't say about anybody in general. I said, here's the beauty of the church's teaching. So a person came up to me afterward and said, Deacon, can I talk to you? I said, sure. They said, I didn't, well, not here. They wanted to talk privately. So we went over to the sacristy. or the presbytery, as you say there in Australia. And we met in one of the rooms, and I said, "What's going on?" They said, "I don't like your homily." I said, "Okay, that's fair. Which part didn't you like?" "All of it." "Okay, what's the problem?" And he's talking about this idea of theology of the body, that natural family planning is basically just the Catholic form of birth control. So I said, "Are you contracepting?" And he said, "Oh, you see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Of course I'm contracepting. All those people you're preaching to out there are contracepting. Look, the church is stuck in the Middle Ages. The church has to keep up with the times." And da-da-da. And he kept going. I said, "Okay, look, I asked you a yes or no question. So obviously you're contracepting." He goes, "Yeah, what does that have to do with anything?" I said, "We'll get back to that." I said, "Let me ask you this. You said because he's told me his wife wasn't interested in having sex anymore. Um, and that's one of the reasons why the homily bothered him, because him and his wife, I was talking about how beautiful this is, and his wife wasn't interested really much anymore. And that's when I asked about contraception. And I said, "Okay, let me ask you this. You said your wife is not interested in sex that much. Tell me the last time that this happened." So he told me that the kids were gone. The kids these were high school kids, so they're probably to football practice or come to some sporting activity. They weren't home. So after having dinner, a little bit later, he made some advances, and his wife said, "I don't want to have sex with you right now." And I'm waiting for him to say more, and that's all he said. I said, "That's it?" He said, "Yes." I said, "You're angry?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Let me see if I understand. Did your wife say, 'I don't love you anymore'?" "No." "You said that your wife says, 'I don't want to have did she say, 'I don't want to have sex with you ever again'?" "No." "You said that she said, 'I don't want to have sex with you right now.' Did you say, 'Okay, how about an hour from now?' You even give her that much?" "No." So I said, "Why are you angry?" Now, disappointed, I can see, but why are you so angry? And he couldn't tell me. So I said, "Here's why." And as I said, love and life are two things that God never intended to be separated. In Psalm 119, verse 88, it says, "Because of your merciful love, give me life, and I will do your will." So love and life are two things that are intimately connected. Now, when you're contracepting, you're forcing two things apart, love and life, that were never intended to be separated. Right. So let me be clear when I mean they're intrinsically connected. It doesn't mean have as many children as possible. That I mean, having lots of children is a beautiful and good thing, but how many children to have is a prudential decision that parents make, right? That a husband and wife make together. You know, uh, and natural family planning is not every act of love is going to bring forth a life, right? It's just natural the way that we're built as human beings. I said, but what you're doing is forcing two things apart, and what that happens when you force two things apart, that leaves an emptiness, a void, a chasm. And as human beings, we're very uncomfortable with those kinds of spaces in our hearts. And so we try to fill that space with what? Alcohol, pornography, drugs, right? Work. We try to fill, and it never brings this any closer together. And so basically what you've done by separating love and life, you've turned your wife into an object, right? Into a thing. All she does for you now is give you pleasure. It doesn't matter what she thinks, what she feels, what she's going through. All you care about is the pleasure that you get from that act. And that's what happens when you separate. That's what contraception does. You can't get pregnant. That's the fact that she can't pray has nothing to do with it. Maybe she's not into it. Maybe there's some other thing going on. But because she's available to you, that's not fair, right, or just. And that's not what marriage is, you know. And so he got a little bit upset as I'm explaining this. And he said, "What do you and your wife do?" I said, "Well, we use natural family planning." He goes, "What's that?" So I had to explain it to him, right? So after I explained just the very basics of natural family planning, He said, well, what if you're in that non-fertile time and your wife isn't into it? What do you do then? And I said, that's a good point. I said, that happens to me. At this point, I was still traveling very frequently. And I was gone for a couple of weeks, and I came back and I was like, yes, we're gonna do it. This is gonna be great. And I noticed that, and I looked in the garbage in the bathroom and I was like, uh-oh, what's going on, that monthly thing. Because I was like, oh no. So I felt disappointed. So what could I have done? I could have asked my wife to do an illicit act of sex, right? I could have looked at pornography, but instead I went back to my office and I started reading one. In fact, I have it on the floor here behind me, the entire Summa Theologica by St. Thomas Aquinas. And I picked up one of the volumes and I started reading St. Thomas Aquinas, right? Because reading St. Thomas Aquinas will kill any sexual desire you have in your body, right? That's a fact, my friend. That's a fact. It works.
Tried and tested.
And yes, my friend, it is true. And I told that man, I said, look, I would rather do that than to turn my wife into an object for my pleasure and gratification. Because as her husband and the father of her children, I always want to see her the way God sees her. I always want to look at her through God's eyes. That's why I will never contracept. Right? And what's pornography? Pornography literally kills God's life. It kills God's heart. That in 1 Samuel, Samuel goes to the house of Jesse to anoint David as the new king. Well, he doesn't know it's David yet, but the Lord points out to him that it's David. And what did the Lord look at? The Lord said he looked at the heart, right? He looked at the heart. And David would write later in Psalm 51, create a clean heart in me, O God. Renew a steadfast spirit within me. And so pornography destroys the spirit of God's heart in us. Mm-hmm. That's why it's so destructive. Because, well, it doesn't affect anybody except me. Oh no. For example, pornography is one of the leading causes for human trafficking. Is pornography. So when you're looking at pornography, you're actually helping to promote human trafficking. I don't think a lot of people realize that. There's a intrinsic connection between the two. And so these are things that destroy the beautiful sexual fulfillment that God calls for in marriage.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting as you go through point number 2 there, sexual fulfillment, it takes you back a little bit back to point number 1 as well, and offering genuine affection. And genuine affection comes from a place of attentiveness to your spouse. And when it comes to sexual fulfillment, I think it's similar. It comes from a place of being attentive to where your spouse, what page they're on, and making sure that you get each other to the same page before you try and go down that path of intimacy. Because unless you're on the same page, it's very self-centered, isn't it? It's if it's not looking out for your spouse, then yes, there's going to be no fulfillment in that, because the fulfillment comes from the fact that you are offering yourself completely, totally, fully to your spouse and receiving them completely as well. And if you're offering everything except your fertility, as for example, in the case of contraception, then it's not a complete offering, and the fulfillment isn't going to come from that intimacy, is it?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And a beautiful thing that you said there, Mark, that sparked this thought. Every act of affection does not have to lead to a sexually fulfilling act, right? I mean, and I think that's sometimes the danger, that a wife feels that, oh, he's showing me a lot of affection, I know what he wants. Yeah. No. It should be, I'm showing you affection just because I love you, without any expectation of anything further than just me showing you affection, or showing affection to each other, sitting, watching a movie, eating some popcorn together, holding hands, or, hugging each other, and not expecting anything else to come out of it. Just beautiful signs of affection like that, and that's kind of where we are. We're doing that more now in our marriage. And that's something that quite frankly, I have to adjust to, you know, and that's okay. You know, it's okay because ultimately I love my wife. Of course, I love having sex with my wife too, but we're at a point where that's not happening as much, and that's okay because it's her, right? It's her, seeing God in her, experiencing her, the love that I have for her. Say she was in an accident and she was incapacitated and in a wheelchair, or you know, where she just could not do. Would my love for her decrease? Would my love for her diminish because we can't express ourselves in a conjugal act anymore? No, Mark. No. In fact, what I would do, I would go to my bishop and have him temporarily suspend my faculties to function as a deacon, so I can spend the rest of my life taking care of my wife. Now, why would I, well, wait, why would you go to the bishop? Because remember, once I'm ordained, I have obligations to the church in addition to my family. If the bishop suspends my faculties, that means I can't function as a deacon. I mean, I didn't do anything wrong, but he's just suspending them. Why? So I can spend the time that I need to take care of my wife. That's love. That's marriage. That's intimacy. That's affection. That's all of those things, Mark. You know, even though we're not expressing it physically, it doesn't matter. That's where the rubber hits the road. That's what marriage is all about.
In a way, it's even more beautiful than expressing it physically, because it's a circumstance that hasn't been chosen, but is still accepted, and you adjust and you go on with life as it presents itself. We don't know what's around the corner, do we? And sometimes people do face challenges just like that. And so if the relationship is entirely hinging on sexual intimacy and without that it falls apart, you have to question if that relationship is meaningful. Even if everything is right and they are able to be sexually intimate, you have to question the validity of that relationship in the first place, don't you?
Yeah, and these are the kinds of things that I talk about in marriage prep. Man, sometimes like, oh, we're talking about this. You have to talk about it. This is going to be a part of your marriage. You know, so I mean, we don't talk about specific details, but just like the way we talked about it just now, you know, just here's the thing. You know, you guys put two and two together, but here is what this is, what the idea, the concept, what the beauty of the church's teaching is with regard to this topic.
Absolutely. I was thinking as we went through that one, maybe I should have left that one until last, because now we've used a lot of time on that one, but obviously with good reason.
Well, we could do this in two parts too. I mean,
we could. Let's see how we go for time. And I mean, if we cover off a few of these quickly, we might still be okay to try and fit into a reasonable time. I feel like we might have to go all pints with Aquinas and do a 3-hour discussion, which wouldn't be a bad thing, but we'll see how we go. We'll keep pushing through. We'll move to point number 3, tip number 3, conversation and prayer time together. Give us a little bit on that particular point.
Yeah, so conversation, this is one of the things that's a huge issue in many marriages, right? This communication, right? There was a book out a number of years ago, right? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. You know, it was a kind of a joke, but it was the idea of like, we're sometimes on two different planets when it comes to communicating with each other, because men and women communicate differently, you know, and sometimes, you know, there's something lost in the translation, right? There's something missing here. And so how do we improve this conversation? One thing that I found to be tremendously helpful is couples praying together. Now, my guess is that in many marriages, not all, because I know this is happening in lots of marriages, but there are a significant number of marriages with Christians, right, where spouses aren't praying together every day. They're doing their own prayers, but they're not praying together, you know. And why is that important? Couple things. First of all, in Genesis chapter 2, which is quoted by Jesus Christ himself in Matthew chapter 19, and also by St. Paul in Ephesians chapter 5, right? This idea of the two have become one. right? Therefore, a man leaves his father and mother and cleaves to his wife, and the two become one flesh. So you're one. So if you're going to be united in marriage and the two of you become one, you also have to be united in your prayer life. Yes, you have your own individual prayer lives, which you should still continue to keep, but there also, since you are one, there also has to be time where you're praying and talking to God together, even if it's just as simple as an Our Father or Hail Mary together. Some couples I know pray the rosary together. I know some couples where the husband's a deacon, where he and his wife pray the Liturgy of the Hours together. That's like advanced. That's like, well, okay, now you're getting into it. Right? But there's some couples that, why don't they pray together? Sometimes for couples, it's uncomfortable, right? Because they're comfortable praying the way they like to pray, and the other spouse is comfortable to praying the way they like to pray. And when they try to get together, it's awkward. It's like, okay, well, what are you gonna say? I don't know. What are you gonna say? I don't know. What are you gonna, you know? And so they end up not doing it, right? But I think it's absolutely essential to talk to God together with one heart as a married couple. Again, doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be a long litany of prayers, but doing something together. And for my wife and I, we just keep it very, very, very simple. I get up every morning and I say, Lord, thank you for allowing me to see the light of another day so that I may give honor, praise, and glory to your most holy name. And then when I'm home, I grab my wife, say, thank you for the gift of my wife. I thank you for our 28 years together, our beautiful children. Help me to be the husband and the father that I need to be for them today. And she says something back to me, right? And that's our prayer for today, because we're very, very different prayer styles, right? I was a monk, so I love very formal, structured, monastic type of prayer. My wife is much more free form, just kind of let it rip, and that's not me, right? So we have two very disparate prayer styles, but we know it's essential to come together and pray, even if it's just very simple, to spend that time together in prayer. And you'll see your conversations start to change in your marriage when you start praying together. You have much, much better and more meaningful and deeper conversations as a couple. That is the fruit of a prayer life that you foster together.
And I think the key to that tip is it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be something that feels daunting in any way. As you just explained, it can be 10 or 20 seconds, just something to connect you to the Lord together, presenting in front of the Lord, offering whatever petitions for the day. It can be really simple, but yeah, hopefully very, very effective as well. And then point 3, conversation time, prayer time together. That actually leads in a little bit to point 4 here on this list, and that's recreational companionship, finding time amongst each other, I suppose, amongst the busyness of life.
Yeah, exactly. Because often we're in a situation where both parents are working. Not in the case for everybody, but a lot of cases, you have both parents working. And so there's the busyness of the family life, there's the busyness of the kids, there's the busyness of work. And often you start to lose perspective, right? You spend your time is taken up by so many other people and so many other things that you lose that valuable time to continue to build and develop your marriage. And so if that continues for 20, 30 years, you end up, when the kids leave and now there's nothing that's keeping you busy, you look at each other and say, who are you? I don't know who you are. What's the typical expression? We've grown apart.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've grown apart. No. So how can we keep that together in the midst of the busyness? Like my wife and I did last night, as I described this, Mark, a date night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When we had when the kids were small, we had to have 2 babysitters, right? We had one for the older girls and one for the twins, right? Because one teenager can't watch 4 little ones. That ain't gonna happen. So we got 2 babysitters, but that gave us the ability to go out and spend some time together, some quality time together. And how are we doing? Okay, yeah, we know how things are going with the kids, but how are we doing? Anything we need to be working on? Is there anything I could be doing better, in the marriage? I mean, just having some time just to connect and process and have a little dinner together and a movie or a walk in the park or something, to just have some fun together. That's really, really important. And I love the fact that my wife and I went out last night. Yeah, all our kids are adults now, right? And most of them are not in the house anymore. But still, I'm busy, right? I'm writing books, I'm speaking around the world. I've got a new business up and running now, with Parousia and Charbel. And so I've got a lot of irons in the fire, and it's really easy for me. I'm an A-type personality. I'm a workaholic by nature. I love working hard. To lose perspective. Oh yeah, Colleen, she's over there somewhere. Oh yeah, we've been together 28 years. She's always going to be here. Well, hold on. It's just like a plant or a flower. If you don't nurture it, if you don't water it, if you don't give it sunlight, fertilizer, and take time to nurture that seed and that plant, it's not going to grow. It's going to die. And the same thing is true in marriage. We have to take time to nurture and foster and to grow the relationship, no matter how many years you've been married. That's something that is critically important that you must take time to do as a couple.
And I don't even understand why someone wouldn't want to do that, because sure, life can get busy and sure, things can be challenging, but this is the person that God has put to walk through life with us, to actually get us to the end of this particular part of the journey. Why wouldn't we want to spend time with them and just enjoy their company? Like, I think it's something that, now it's very easy to say what I just said. Once again, in amongst all the business, it sometimes is quite hard to find the time. But I think the more you do it, is the point I'm trying to make. The more you do it, the more you'll realize how essential it is. And the more you'll realize what you together as a couple are going to take away from that. So yeah, just to be able to spend a bit of time, I think it's very key and a very important thing to consider on this list. And we move on now to tip number 5, honesty and openness. What do you have to say on that topic, Deacon?
So being honest and open, so it means not keeping things within yourself. And guys are really good at just holding things in, right? Women just blah, blah, they'll talk for like hours and blah, if you just give them a chance, they'll just spout out, right? But guys sometimes like to keep things inside and just work through and process, but I think it's important to show that gift of vulnerability, to not be afraid to show your wife your heart, to not be afraid to open the deepest parts of your heart to her, and a wife to her husband as well. But for me, Mark, the reason that was so hard in our marriage was because issues of trust, right? So for me, there are certain things that I think that need to stay between a husband and wife, right? There are conversations that we have. They're not bad or anything like that. They're not, scandalous, but it's just, they're personal, right? And these are feelings that you could talk to your wife about. You could maybe talk with God about, but you don't want your friends knowing. You don't want her friends knowing. You don't want anybody. So I tell my wife, look, because she was saying, I need you to be open. I need you to share your heart with me. I need you to go deeper. I need you. And that's really, really hard for me, because that's not, I mean, well, there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, environment growing up and not seeing my parents show much love and affection and not, that, I mean, there's a lot of things I think that play into it. And I'm not using it as an excuse, but it's very hard for me to just open up. But I said, if I work at this, if I make an effort to do this, it is extremely important to me that you not share what I'm opening to you with other people. Again, not because anything is bad, but I mean, this is something I'm sharing with you. You're my wife. I stood at the altar. I made a vow before God with you, not with your friends, not with the neighbors, with you. And so you want me to open your heart, I'm opening my heart to you. So this, whatever we're talking about now, needs to stay between us, because there's a beauty and a vulnerability there. It's almost like a confessional, right? You confess things, and that's staying right there in that confessional. The priest's not going to go out and tell people. What you said stays right there. And that's the kind of way I need that to happen, at least in my marriage. Again, not because I'm embarrassed or ashamed, but because I just think there's some personal things that need to stay between spouses. And so, how do you do that? The question is, how do you start to open yourself? My wife came up with this idea. I think it was brilliant. So, one of the things we did was, if we had a vase. I bought her some flowers one year, and we emptied out the vase when the flowers died, and we kept the vase, or the vase, as I guess you guys would say there, right? And so what we would do is, we had little slips of paper and a pen, almost like a sticky note, right? And we had a pen or a pencil. And so if I did something that if Conley did something that upset me, I would write it down, fold it up, and put it inside the jar. If she did something that I thought was awesome, that I appreciated, I would also write that down and put it inside the jar. She would do the same thing. And so, we during the week, we put these things in the jar. I don't know how many we'd have in there, maybe 5, 6 things or whatever, maybe more. And so what we would do is this. Now, first of all, why did we do that? Because when you're angry at someone, in that moment, you want to snap at the person. You want to let them know right then, in that moment, how you feel, how you made me feel, what you did was stupid, or whatever. So what this does is, by writing it down, you're still getting that emotion, but now it's folded up and it's put inside the vase, right? So you're not exploding on that person in that moment. Because what happens when you do that? You da-da-da-da. Oh yeah, what about this? You da-da-da-da. Next thing, you're bringing up something from 10 years ago. You're like, wait a minute, where'd that come from? So, and then bam, you're into it. But with this, so what happens? So what we did was, on Friday night, let's say Friday night, we had a mini date night. So I would bring home Thai food, because my wife loves Thai food. I bring home some Thai food. The kids would be in bed. We sit down and have just a dinner, just my wife and I. And as we're eating dinner, which is a very enjoyable, pleasurable experience, we reach into the jar and pull out the slips of paper. And I would read my wife would say, okay, I wish you would fold the laundry sooner, so the kids don't walk around with wrinkled clothes. Good. That's what she was upset about. So I looked at that, because now the anger is dissipated, right? So now she's not like, it's on a piece of paper. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Here's what was going on. I was working on a homily, and I got really inspired, and I thought, oh, I got to fold the laundry. Well, let me get this thought down, because if I don't get it down now, I'm going to forget. And so I was busy, and then I kind of forgot about the clothes. That's my fault. Next time, maybe I'll record it on my phone, the idea on my phone, record it, and then go back and write it later. That's something I could do, so that won't happen again. And then we take something good. I really like when you brought me flowers and chocolates. Oh, you like that? I'm going to keep doing it. You like that? Huh? I'll show you. I'm going to keep doing it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it was, so the emotion and whatever you were feeling at that time is not there, because it's just a slip of paper. And then you work through the vase, you talk about some things, then you sit down and you watch a movie together. There it is. So you're communicating, and what is this doing? Because if this little technique where we're talking about things as they happen, and we're doing it every week, what happens is, if you don't do something like that, you don't have to do exactly what we did, but if you don't do something like that, we're talking about these things regularly, the little things, they start to become big things, right? So this thing that keeps nagging you, that your wife or your husband is doing over and over and over again, if you don't talk about it, if you don't bring it up, it's going to fester, right? It's going to like a wound that's open, right? And it gets an infection. And next thing, it starts to spread, and now you have to go to the doctor, and they have to give you all kinds of medicine for a little cut right? And now it's this big thing. Same thing can happen in marriage. The little things that happen over and over and over and over and over again can turn into something huge, can turn into a major issue. So this honesty and openness, very simple ways to just allow yourself to be vulnerable. And that's where Christ's strength from the cross came from, precisely from his vulnerability. That's what Paul says in 2 Corinthians. My power, the Lord said to him, my power is made perfect in weakness. It's when I'm weak, it's then that I'm strong. And so a man doesn't have to feel like, oh, I'm a wimp if I talk to my wife about what's on my heart. You're not a wimp. You're being a real man, because now you're being Christ crucified to your wife.
Sure. And I don't think I'm sure it's not lost on our listeners that in the example you've just given, not only are you being honest and open, but you are spending time together, you are talking together. So you're actually ticking off at the same time a lot of the other things on this list. And they do all go together in such a nice way, don't they?
Yeah, they do, but you have to practice it, right? You have to do it. You just can't think about it, and you have to make the time.
Yes.
I get it. Everybody's busy. I'm busy. I travel a lot on weekends, so I'm not always here on weekends. I'm literally working on the weekends. But when I am home, like last night was a weekday, or we knew it was a holiday coming up, right? So it was a holiday here in the States. So, so we spent that time, and I could have been working. I could have been preparing for the Parousia tour. I could have been doing a lot of different things, but I said, no, I'm going to spend this time with my wife, because this time is absolutely important and critical for us.
Absolutely. So that was number 5 on our list of 10, honesty and openness. We move now to number 6. Number 6 is attractiveness of the spouse and finding time to make yourself presentable to your spouse.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This basically is, okay, when you first get married, like if you see in the picture in the background there, I was pretty handsome. I had hair back then. My wife still looks amazing. She still looks, to me, she still looks like that. 28 years later, she still looks as good as she did on the day we were married. But I've gained weight and things like that. I've recently lost about what would that be in kilos? It's 61 pounds, which would be,
I'm no good at the conversion.
26 kilos, something like that. So a
Significant
significant amount of weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, significant amount of weight. Now, why is that important? The historian Cicero wrote, sic transit gloria mundi, so passes the glory of the world. Right. So as you get older and as you have children, you're going to gain weight. You're not going to look as good. You're going to start getting wrinkles and, body changes. And so in a sense, you become less physically attracted to your spouse because of the weight gain, maybe from your wife having a bunch of kids. She's bigger than she was before, or you yourself. I know I've struggled with my weight, for years. And it's only recently, after switching doctors and switching the way I eat and being able to go back to a gym with a personal trainer, because I need to be around for my wife. I have an obligation, responsibility to remain healthy for her, and for my kids, and to do the work that God has called me to do. So I think it's an obligation and a responsibility to keep physically fit, and to and not become a couch potato. I mean, I think that's part of it. And it's hard. I get it. It's another one of those things that just takes time. And when am I going to find the time? Here's what I do. I get up at 5 a.m. every morning, including the weekends, 5 a.m. I do that for several reasons. One, in the time zone that I'm in, if I'm traveling to another time zone, it makes getting up, because I have to get up early here, but it's later. Like, say I have a 8 o'clock mass. Well, 8 o'clock mass in an Eastern time zone is 5 o'clock in the morning my time. So if I'm getting up at 5 o'clock and my body is used to that circadian rhythm, then it's not going to be as painful trying to get to an 8 a.m. mass in the Eastern time. See what I'm saying? That's one reason. The other reason is I get up, I pray for an hour. In fact, right here, I have my breviary and I have my, these are the Psalms that I use. I use the Revised Grail Psalms, which are much more faithful to the Hebrew, because I do read Hebrew. So So I read that I use that translation of the Psalms rather than the one that's in the breviary, because again, it's much more, it's closer and a little more faithful to the Hebrew. Then I do my devotionals, rosary, so I spend an hour in prayer. Then I head to the gym from 6 to 7 a.m. Then I get back home from the gym and I go for, then I do my cardio. I do about, what would that, 5 miles would be about 2.9, 3 kilometers, something, somewhere around there.
Yep.
And I do that cardio 6 days a week. So I go to the gym 3 days a week and I do the cardio, or I go to gym 4 days a week because I just added an abdominal core routine. And I have a personal trainer who came up with all of my exercise regimens, and I faithfully, and once you get into a rhythm like that, it's beautiful. And now I'm losing weight, and the seatbelt on the plane fits much, much better now. My clothes are big on me now, it's wonderful. And my wife is much happier, and I'm much happier because I'm more physically fit. I feel so much better. And it's a wonderful thing, and that can really enhance a marriage. So just to say, beauty fades. You're not going to look as good as you did. You got your gray hair, you're a little bit chubby or whatever, but it really is important that you take the time, because this holistic mind, body, and soul. If you want to have a complete relationship with God, you focus on the mind, right? So learning about the faith, growing intellectually, the body physically, and then the soul spiritually. So it's that holistic approach. When we engage God in our faith, we have a relationship with God. It has to be mind, body, and soul. So we really should focus on all three, because that really makes us into the person that God created us to be.
Nice. I'm going to give you the next two together, and they do very much focus on the day-to-day strain of running a household. So number 7 is financial support, and number 8 is domestic support. So can you give us a bit of an explanation of both of these?
Sure.
Because I think they both do go together, because they're two very different aspects that come to running a household, but I think one can't work without the other. So can you maybe explain both of those together?
So financial support obviously is bringing in income to bringing in financial resources into the house, so you can feed, clothe your family, put the kids in Catholic school, and all those kinds of things, right? So there's the financial support. So again, sometimes both spouses are working, in order to bring money into the home. And then there's domestic support, which is the support that you give at home. So again, generalizing here, the husband is typically the one who provides the financial support. He takes the lead in that perspective. Again, that's not everybody, because I understand sometimes both spouses are working, and the wife provides the domestic support. So she stays home with the kids and takes care of the household and the kids and cooking and all that kind of stuff. Again, I'm generalizing here, okay? So what you don't want to do is that one is more important than the other. So for example, you come home and your wife says, "You know what, honey, I think we need to put more of our budget. I'm the one making the money. All you do is sit home with the kids. You're not working." Hold on. So what's happening in that situation, Mark? What you're saying is, my contribution to this family is more important than your contribution. You see, I'm the one bringing in the money. Therefore, I'm the one that should decide what happens financially. No. Or I'm doing the financial, so you should do all the domestic. You should clean the bathrooms and the ironing and all that kind of stuff. I shouldn't have any responsibility. I shouldn't cut the lawn or anything like that, because I'm providing all the money. Wrong answer, right? There has to be a balance there. There has to be a balance. Now, I'm an absolute idiot if I think that because my wife is not working, that she has no say in what happens financially in that house. That is ridiculous. We are a team. So even now, my wife's a psychologist. She's making, she works only like 3 days a week, and I'm working, and I'm bringing a lot more money than she is, which is fine. But I don't make any decisions. For example, when I decide to leave my job, I talk to my wife about it. Now, whether I leave my job has no impact on her directly. I mean, she's not like my boss, but if I'm making a life change like that, I have to talk to my wife because it's going to affect our marriage and our relationship. So I have to talk to her. And I say, okay, financially, hon, this is what it means. Family wise, here's what it means. Marriage wise, here's what this decision means. Let's talk about it together. It's a discernment that you do together. Why? Because you're one. You're one. And I should also take some domestic responsibility. Like I should clean the bathrooms. Or like the other day, I did the laundry and folded the laundry all by myself. Proud to say, because I rarely actually do laundry. But my wife was not feeling well, so I did the laundry and I washed all the clothes and I did the towels and stuff separate. So you're supposed to do the underwear and stuff separate. I got that part down. And then I folded everything without being told to, without being asked to. I just saw the need and did it. Sometimes I'll just wash the dishes. The dishes are sitting there and the dishwasher's only half full. I said, I could just wash these by hand or, whatever. And I just see a need and you do it. You don't come home and say, well, how come the house isn't clean? I've been running around behind 5 kids all day. And I'm trying my best, but I can't keep everything clean all the time. We should do a better job because I hate coming home to a messy house. Whoa. You see something like that could be an issue? I mean, a real issue.
Just a little, yeah.
In marriages. Yeah, so there has to be a balance there. Okay, you have to come home. When you have kids, you cannot expect your home to be immaculate. You don't live in a palace when you have kids. Things there's going to be poop all in the place. There's going to be food around. There's going to be clothes all over the place. I mean, it goes with the territory. You have to relax and say, okay, this is my life right now. I can't have the nice house that I always thought we could have. Not when the kids are that small. They run the house, basically, right? So you just have to relax and say, okay, hon, how can I support you? What do you need me to do? And that's the other thing, because guys aren't intuitive. My wife sometimes will just wait for me to do things. And I need her to tell me to do things. She goes, well, I just thought you would know that this had to be done. No. Why don't you tell me what you want me to do? And I'll be happy to do it, but you need to tell me. Well, I just thought you just would know. You need to I'm a little slow up here. You need to tell me what I mean. So that's a real conversation, by the way, Mark. Because sometimes I just don't notice, or because I'm a guy, but guys need to be told firmly and directly. Here's what I need you to do, right? We're mission oriented, right? Okay, I just got a goal. I just got a task. I need to execute, right? That's the way we think. So don't feel bad, ladies, if your husband's not very perceptive. If you're waiting for him to do something or to jump in and he's oblivious, that's not because he doesn't care. That's because he's a guy, right? Tell him, hon, I need you to take the baby right now because I need to go to the bathroom, or I need to go pump milk, or whatever it is. I need to go do something right now. So oh, no problem. I got this, but so just be clear that when you're talking to a guy, lay out what and so it should work domestically and financially. There's a partnership there, not one over the other, but both together.
And communication, once again, like with most of these, communication is the key.
Yes, exactly right.
We move to point number 9 out of 10, family commitment and spending meaningful time not on the clock, and I suppose carefree timelessness.
Yeah, and the real issue here, Marcus, is spending quality time as a family. And the way we did that, family night. Family night. 1 hour a week. Come on, 1 hour a week where we're doing something together, fun as a family. That's family night. Whether it's a board game, whether it's playing outside. We used to, in fact, when the kids were younger, we used to play outside in our front yard, and we used to make up games. Like, okay, let's take the ball. If you kick the ball past this patch of grass, then it's we used to just make up games, make up our own rules, and it was so much fun. We had a game called Lost and Found, where it was like hide and seek, but once you found the person, you had to tickle them. I mean, it was just a lot of fun. We came up with these really cool games and ideas, and those are the things that the kids still talk about. They're adults now.
Mm.
And they still talk. Oh, remember that night in family night where we had the dance off and daddy like fell on the ground and was rolling around on the ground. That was so funny, you know. In fact, we filmed one of the family nights, and I kept it on my phone in my favorites. And I had no idea that the kids were really, really young. And I don't know, you're not gonna be able to see this, but if the viewers, oh, you can't see with the
It's
background
not,
there, but anyway,
it's not finding it. Oh, there you
yeah,
go.
it's not working. But anyway, this on my phone is a picture of the kids when we were doing family night one night, and the kids here are really small, and I didn't realize that they kept this video.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, wait a minute, they actually kept the video because they just thought it was so cool that we were having these family nights and having so much fun together as a family, and they get to see mommy and daddy be silly, and you know, it was just really cool. You know, and so again, 1 hour, 168 hours in a week,
Mm.
and 1 hour to spend quality time as a family together.
Yeah.
Even more, you know, on the weekends, you can go to the beach or go to the park or go on an outing or go visit relatives and things like that. But outside of that, just spending 1 hour a week, just having fun together as a family is really, really important.
It actually makes me think of Mary Poppins, the movie. My kids were watching that last night just while we were getting dinner ready. And just the whole concept of the father is so focused on his work, and he's just always at work, doesn't have time for the kids. And the whole storyline behind the movie was helping this father to connect with his kids ultimately. And at the end, they go and fly the kite. And that's kind of what you're talking about, isn't it? It's even though we're busy, even though we've got commitments and all these things going on around us, this stuff is essential. If we're not doing this, the rest doesn't matter. Like, what are you doing it for, if not to have that time with your family?
Well, think about, what do you want your kids to remember? Oh, mommy was always busy. Oh, daddy was always gone. They never had time for me. Is that what you want them to remember? Or do you want them to remember family night? So with the goal of them bringing that into their own family one day, that's the beauty of it. Because now you're creating memories for them that they're going to want to bring that same feeling, that same excitement, that same love into their own families one day. And they'll, you know, your kids are creative. They'll find their own way to have their own type of family night with their own family. It doesn't have to be the same way we did it when we were kids, but that's something that they're going to bring into their home, because to see how important and how special that is.
Sometimes it could even be the same. I mean, I think often about, you know, when I'm older and my kids are married and have their own kids, and then I'm the grandparent, which feels like such a long way away, but at the same time, it feels like it's coming on very quickly. But I kind of look forward to the time where I can sit there and see my kids interacting with their wife and children, and then I recognize in their relationships something that seed was planted in our family now. And I just get thinking, if I get to that point and I can sit there and witness that in my children and their families, how proud I would be that our efforts have actually led to that. Because it is a struggle when you've got a lot of young kids, and even just getting together. I mean, in our house, we play board games, but sometimes the little ones don't quite get the concept and it makes it challenging, but we get through. But just to see these things that we're working on now, I really look forward to the day where I can sit back as the grandparent, sort of overseeing the next generation and identifying what they're doing now. Oh, that's what we used to do. They must have meant something to them, because they've adopted that concept in whatever form it takes, but they've adopted that concept for their own family. And I just think I really look forward to be able to be sitting back and seeing that. And I think that will be really special when I get to that point in time. God willing, I get to that point in time.
Yeah.
So that's point number 9, tip number 9, family commitment and spending time together as a family. So we go to point number 10 out of 10 for tips to a divorce-proof marriage. Point number 10 is admiration. I suppose a summary of that would be showing each other that their contribution to the relationship and to the family is appreciated. We value them. What do you have to say on the point of admiration?
Yeah, so this would be kind of the way my wife needs affection, I need admiration, right? And it's just the opposite. My wife needs affection. I don't need a lot of affection. I need admiration. My wife doesn't need a lot of admiration. You see? So
Mm,
it's kind of an opposite thing for us. So the way she needs affection, I need admiration. What does that mean? That I need to hear from her. I mean, because Mark, I'll just be honest with you. Sometimes I travel so much that sometimes I wish that I wasn't. I'm actually working to create a situation where I don't have to travel as much moving forward. Because honestly, some of that is driven by financial considerations. I do have two kids that are in uni, and it's very expensive here in the United States.
mhm,
And so I had burden. So sometimes right now I have to be gone when I don't necessarily want to be gone. Sometimes I'm traveling, God, I wish I was home right now, you know? And and I just need to hear from my wife that those sacrifices that I'm making, I'm not traveling just to be Deacon Harold. Part of it is I am traveling. Well, first of all, this is what God wants me to do. So I'm
mhm,
fulfilling God's will for my life, but I'm also providing for our family. So I need to hear from her. You know what, hon? The sacrifices that you're making, I so appreciate. I know that you want to be home more. I know that you want to spend more quality time with me, but I just want to let you know that it means so much to me and to this family that you're making those sacrifices for us, and we understand how you feel, and we just want to know that we love you and thank you for doing this for us. I mean, that's huge, man.
mhm,
That's huge. And that's the kind of thing that I need to hear. Um, that all the things I'm doing are appreciated by the family. And I tell them, I said, hon, I wish I didn't have to go, or but like I said, I'm working in a situation now post COVID. I'm working in a situation now, um, again with this new, with CMS, with Christian Marketing Solutions, to get to a point financially where I don't have to travel as much. And so, yeah, moving forward, I'm still going to be traveling overseas and still doing speaking, but not nearly as much as I'm doing now.
mhm.
And that's, for me, that's a good thing. Plus, I mean, it's going to give opportunities for the up and coming speakers, right, who need to get out there and bring the message too. So I see myself in kind of a slow transitional period right now. And that's a shift in our family, and my wife is completely on board and supportive and affirming. And it's just, I mean, I can't do it without her. I mean, I just can't. I mean, it doesn't work unless she's on board. It doesn't work unless she's supportive. It doesn't work unless she's giving me the admiration that I need, that spurs me on to
Mm.
continue to do this every single day. You know, and in addition to knowing I'm fulfilling God's will, and all of that too, but all of that plays into it. So that affirmation, letting your spouse know how much you truly appreciate them, and the efforts they're making. Even like, oh, hon, I love when you open your heart to me the other night. That meant so much. I saw how hard it was for you to kind of bring that out, but I love the fact that you're trying. I love the fact that you're not afraid to be vulnerable, that you feel safe with me sharing intimate things, about maybe your childhood, or how it felt when dad left, or how, that you're sharing those with me. It just makes me feel so much closer to you. I mean, that's the stuff I need to hear, because that keeps me motivated to keep doing it,
Mhm.
right? To keep doing
Sure.
it, because to keep being affectionate, because when I show affection, she shows me admiration, right? So that's that wonderful balance that we also have to strive for in marriage.
And once again, we display in making one point that it links in with the other one. So these things all really do go together, which is why there's no real. I mean, we've delivered them in an order 1 to 10, but there's no real order or to the way these need to be applied. And like I said at the start, some of these might not necessarily be applicable to each and every couple, but I'd like to think that of those 10 points, there probably is some sort of application in each couple's life, or a time or a season where each of these 10 points would be helpful, even if it's not necessarily here and now. But yeah, I think they're really 10 very useful pointers, 10 really useful tips to making sure that marriage is lifelong the way we commit it to be, and to make sure that we can avoid the horrors of divorce. And we really need in our society to have strong marriages, strong families. So hopefully our discussion today, Deacon Harold, is giving people food for thought, providing some ideas as to the different things they can try in their own relationship to really solidify and strengthen their family, or their relationship, their family, and the wider world around them as well. So Deacon Harold, once again, thank you so much for your words of wisdom and for your thought that's gone into this particular topic.
Thank you, Mark. It's been great to talk about this with you and with all the Parousia family.
Absolutely. No, we thank you very much for your time. If anyone wants to know more about Deacon Harold and what he's doing, you can always look at his website, deaconharold.com, and you can look at all of his upcoming events around the States, and also for all of those in Australia, an upcoming event or a series of events in Australia as well. Deacon Harold's got an online store. You can purchase a lot of his resources there as well, and just keep up to date with all things in Deacon Harold's world. And for those who want to continue to follow us at Parousia, our website is parousiamedia.com, where this podcast is one of a series of podcasts, and we've also got blogs, events, also our online store as well. So plenty of information at parousiamedia.com as well. So that's the end of another episode of Speakin with Deacon. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to being with you next time. God bless.